All right, I can ask you a question. Was outside of what you call the maroon community, were there Africans fighting the British that was not called maroons? Were there Africans on the plantation fighting the British but was not designated maroons themselves? Or from your fight against, or you become a maroon? From your fight against the British, you're a maroon, or you're a runaway slave that run up in the hills and then declare yourself a marooned in the hills? Or you work?
Now you have what you call petty maroonage. That is people who run away to escape an infringement of punishment with every intention of going back.
Yes.
Okay. So those they were out in the bush. You couldn't call them maroons because they really had no intentions of freeing them themselves. They are evidence of going back.
So what I'm asking now, were there Africans who was fighting the British that was not marooned?
I would imagine Three Finger Jack would come under that that definition. Yes, I would imagine Tacky also would come under that definition.
Sam Sharp.
Sam Sharp. Certainly, but you see, you have to look at also what it is that these people were really fighting for. Even if you look at Bogle, even though Bogle himself was a maroon, what were they really fighting? Were they really fighting for freedom? Were they really fighting for freedom? Because Bogle was fighting for better conditions under slavery.
All right. So what was Taki, in your estimation? What was he fighting for?
Taki was fighting for freedom.
For freedom.
Yeah. He was fighting
but he was not a maroon.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. That's the question I was asking. It was there Africans who was fighting on the plantation that would not be deemed maroon. And
yes.
I guess the answer is yes.
Yes.
Why I ask that question is the idea that you just mentioned about not mixing up the spirits.
Yeah.
So
right.
if Taki, who was not a maroon, who was fighting the British, and lead one of the biggest rebellions in Jamaica, his spirit would not be in the burial ground where the so-called maroons is.
Yes, where the maroons.
Yeah.
Not so-called. Where the maroons.
Yeah, really. Well, they're marooned. I mean, all of us was marooned on this island. We were all marooned on the island. So
you see, what were maroons? What made you maroon? But not that you were on the island. Was that you fought for 85 years? 85 years of armed conflict, of sweating, dying.
Yes.
It is in the crucible of battle, of war, for which the character of the maroons.
But there were Africans outside of that community that was fighting also. And we just mentioned Taki. What I'm trying to get at is this: that
yes,
the spirit of Taki.
I understand what you're. I understand where I'm going.
Yeah.
With that. I read your epilogue.
Well, I don't go there. I don't go there, So you can't assume that we are going.
Since I know where you're.
No, don't assume that I'm going anywhere.
But it is that, but not just for a period of time, not for a year, but for 85
years. All right. So what?
This is what made you man. It is in this let's see, which even Barry Chevron said that after 85 years they had become a people unto themselves. Barry Chevron.
Yeah, well, we realize that.
From him.
Yeah, we realize that.
Yes.
But I want to go back to the spirit thing that you mentioned. I'm saying now, what would make Taki's spirit? The difference between Taki's spirit and a maroon spirit is that the Maroons was fighting for 85 years. Not necessarily the person who buried in the.
Yeah, the descendants of, yes.
Yeah, the descendants of. But then now we'll have. What would be the confusion if Taki was in the Maroon graveyard? What would be the confusion in that spirit?
I tell you something. That I'm not. Now we're really getting into the spirit that comes in Kumina and in Bongo.
Bongo.
It's a different spirit that comes.
Yes.
With command to drumming. It's a different spirit that
explain
comes.
to me. Explain the spirit, the difference. Explain the difference.
Just that. Just that. And you can tell by the way in which they come, the way in which they how the people who are in Mal under a spirit of a Kumina or of a Bongo, there's a difference in that spirit. And
but Taku was
there's something
spirit.
else too.
Taku was up a Congo spirit, a Bongo spirit.
No? There you go. No, to clear a spirit, to actually clear a spirit,
yes.
You have to know how to clear a particular spirit.
Yes.
So a romantic spirit, a Maroon may not know how to clear a Bongo spirit.
Right.
You see? So he may not know how to clear a spirit that comes with Kumina.
So where Taki come from?
Taki was a chief.
No, we talk about Koromanti. We talk about Koromanti.
Yes.
So we can also talk about Asante also. But I'm saying now that Taki, that spirit that drive Taki to lead the biggest slave uprising in Jamaica.
Yes.
And he was not a Maroon.
No.
What would cause this group, Maroon, to say or to validate that they wouldn't want the Maroon spirit to mix with Taki spirit because he was not a Maroon?
You know one of the problems that Maroons had with Taki?
Yes.
Was that he destroyed 3 of their establishments.
He did what?
He destroyed 3 of their establishments because the Maroons had establishments where they trade lumber and meat with the British.
And they destroyed.
He destroyed 3.
So that is why they capture him. That is why they capture him and hand him over to the British.
Pardon?
That is why they capture him and hand him over to the British.
It became who is the baddest dog in the bush. That's what it really came down to. Who is the baddest dog in the bush?
No, what I'm saying that was, so the Maroon became the baddest dog in the bush. So they captured Taki and hand him over and cut off his head and he put on a stick and that was the end of that rebellion.
If you destroy 3 of my establishment, what do you think I'm going to do?
Well, maybe I wouldn't hand you over to the enemy.
Well,
maybe I would chastise you as a next African, but I wouldn't hand you over to the enemy.
Well, it's one thing to think about ourselves now.
Yeah, but at that time you couldn't think about that.
This is why in the museum in Charlestown,
yes,
we need the entrance of it. The Maroons, by the daily struggle for freedom, forged for themselves an identity according to which they judge themselves.
Yes.
If you do not understand the struggle,
according to the days that they were living in, so they were living in a certain time.
It's going to be fraud.
Yeah. So we now justify Paul Bogle now, who was a Maroon.
Paul Bogle was told not to get involved with the Baptist Church
by the Maroons.
He was a Maroon.
No, I'm saying
no. By the Maroons not to get involved with the Baptist Church. When he did.
Oh, wait. Because stick up in. Paul Bogle was told by the Maroons not to get involved in what?
With the Baptist Church.
With the Baptist Church.
Right.
So why did he get involved with the Baptist Church?
Who can tell a man's heart and a man's spirit? So when he went to Moortown, when he was going to Moortown, he was told not to go to Moortown without someone interceding for him. He went. He had a party with the people in Moortown.
Yes.
And he thought that gave him something that they were going to support him, but that's not so.
So that is why the Maroons hand him over to the British.
There's a whole lot of things that we don't talk about. One of the things that the Colonel Fife found in the pocket of one of Bogle's followers was the finger ring of a minister who was a very good friend of Fife, who was a very good friend of the Maroons. They found his finger ring with the ring on the finger in his pocket.
This was a Maroon finger, or was a white man finger?
No. It was a British.
It was a white man finger.
It was a minister.
Yeah, a white man finger. It was a white man finger that they found.
Let us back up a little bit when you say white here now. When you back up a little
white
bit,
man mean a British. Is a
European. It was the Jews.
All right, well, Jews, white people, it don't matter.
It was the Jews that sold Maroons the ammunition.
No,
it was the Jewish boys that signed the traveling paper for the Maroons. They're white. What do you say to that? They were white, but they were helping the Maroons.
No, listen.
So
wait. We're talking about the finger that they found with Paul Bogle.
Yeah.
This finger
not with Paul Bogle.
Sorry.
But with one of his followers.
Yeah.
Who killed the minister.
Yeah, so I'm saying now, this minister that was killed was a British subject operating in Somalia.
Yes, I'll say yes.
All right. So now, because am I to believe that because this killing was done by this to this British who was helping the Maroons decide now that they're going to take revenge on Paul Bogle and his followers?
What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that this is, but their actions, there are things that you don't know about that caused a certain reaction. That is very emotive.
The problem. The problem is that one man was not a Maroon, and he led the biggest rebellion against the British, and he was captured by the Maroons because the Maroons saying that him burned down some place or from them place. The next one was a Maroon, and them still, because him kill a white man, them come now and say. But do you understand the relationship with the Maroons and the Baptist Church? Yeah, of course, I understand it. I understand it.
Maybe let's back up so you understand what I'm talking about. In the beginning, the missionaries were supposed to teach the Maroon children reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yes.
But what the colonel found was that they were teaching them spirituality. They were teaching them Christianity. They're taking from their Maroons their own spirituality. So the colonel banished the missionaries and developed a mistrust for education.
Yes, like Boko Haram.
So what I'm saying is that you don't know what the relationships were between each of these members.
Yeah, but
look at Africa. What is happening in Africa right now?
No, but we can't. No, we're not talking about right now. We could go to the idea about the Paul Bogle. Paul Bogle was using the church to help him to free whosoever he wanted to free at the time. He was using the church.
It wasn't freedom. Paul wasn't talking about freedom. Paul wasn't merely talking about better conditions under the system.
Yes.
It was not freedom that Paul was talking about.
Okay, all right. Better conditions. A lot of slave rebellions in America for better conditions was started by people slaves in the church. God, they used the church if you listen to most of the gospel song that was created by these black people, it does not mean necessarily that they were praising Jesus, but it was coded messages for the slaves who the only place they could gather together was in the same white man church. So they used the white man church to help to organize themselves without have to be hiding in some cave or some bush. Paul Bogle was doing the same thing as a Maroon. But Paul Bogle went on the wrong side of the Maroons because the Maroons was defending their association with the British, and in order to maintain that association, they had to do something against Paul Bogle. That is really what took place. And if we look on the other side of it, it's the same thing with Taki. Taki went on the wrong side of the Maroons, even though he led the biggest and more devastating rebellion against the Europeans. But then now, because he was on the wrong side, the Maroons have to get rid of him again. So
well,
right there, one who is a Maroon, one who is not a Maroon.
The three-finger jack. The three-finger jack.
What is the three-finger jack? Three-finger jack was not Maroon. It was not a Maroon.
You're not a Maroon.
No.
But you know.
Yeah, this is the Cutting Edge on RFM. We're talking about the Maroons to Colonel Frank Lumsden.
Yes. No, we read left off. Let us finish this one quickly. We read left off was Quashie and Three-Finger Jack. It was in a fight with Quashie that Three-Finger, he cut off two of his fingers. That make him call Three-Finger Jack. So there's a fight. That's man and man. The British have nothing to do with it. It's just man and man. Now, when Three-Finger Jack's Obia man, that was protecting him, and falling out with Three-Finger Jack and told Quashie what he had to do to take down Three-Finger Jack. And he did, using what his overman told him. Now, this don't have nothing to do with British or something. And this is something that people can't seem to understand. There's man and man in the bush. Look at what's happening in Africa now. Look at what's happening in Africa now. But nobody is saying African this, Maroon that.
Yes, we can't say it about Africa, said we. We can't say it
about
Africa.
But you have to understand that a lot of times it's just man and man in the bush.
But the African leaders, they must sell out Africa right now as we speak.
As we speak?
Yes, as we speak. As we speak, the government of Jamaica is selling out Jamaica as we speak. So, what I want, before we go, I want to just say I just want to ask you one thing here, right?
Yes.
We're going to Taki and Paul Bogle because talking about Taki as a non-Maroon and Paul Bogle as a Maroon is very interesting to find out that the same thing that was meted out to Taki was meted out to Paul Bogle in relationship of getting him to be tried by the British. So the part of the signing of this treaty, according to what I read, and the Maroons in a compound keep saying the reason why Kodjo signed that is because he couldn't read what he was signing. I don't buy that. I don't really buy that because they carried out exactly what they said they never understand by capturing Maroons and the Africans who was disturbing the status quo, which was at the time was the British. The Maroons, in order to get what they call independence from the British, signed the treaty saying, all right, here's what we will do. We will suppress any uprising against you if you allow us to maintain our sovereignty in the hills. And I am now going to assume that this was what Kwaku did also. Sign the treaty and say, all right, we are Maroons. We're not talking about freedom for every African here now. We're talking about freedom for we Maroons. Therefore, we will sign this treaty saying that if there is an uprising against the British, we the Maroons will squash this uprising. Is that part of the signature, the signing of this, what we're now celebrating? That
yes,
it is.
Yes, it is part of it. But you know something? You know something, Muta?
Yes.
You know something, Muta?
Yes.
If you go up to Old Crawford Town, if you try walking up to Old Crawford Town and see where Old Crawford Town is, to see where these people were fighting out of, to see the conditions under which they were fighting. After 85 years of armed conflict, they got tired. They couldn't carry the weight for everybody. They got tired. They wanted to become self-preservation.
It was a different set of
That's what it became, self-preservation for their people. Because look, there were how many thousands of people of slaves on the plantation, and so few Marines. You know how few Marines there were. They were left to fight for themselves.
This is the problem I have with this argument about Maroon. They say for self-preservation. The Maroons who came here like every other African who is on this island. They never come here as Maroon. Them come here
and not every other African took to the bush.
Yeah, but other like Africans was fighting also.
And fought and died, fighting down, fighting.
Other Africans were fighting also that were not Maroons. And the Maroons signed a treaty to capture these Africans to maintain the British status quo in Jamaica.
A lot of what happened that is understood. Did you know that a lot of what Maroons brought in were the first of is dead. They cut off their ears or their finger. And they said this is people they killed. Maroons even had arranged slaves. They brought the slaves in. The slaves didn't run away. They brought the slaves in, got the money, and split it with the slaves. They're also...
But the Maroons was killing Africans. The Maroons was killing Africans.
Maroons also collected honey made by wild bees, honey by wingless bees, and brought slaves, which they freed, which they had among them, and freed them.
No, Mr. B.
This you don't know. This nobody talks about.
No, we in America, them do that too. In Americans, people used to buy the freedom. Africans, when them save up a certain portion of money, them go to the master and say, I have certain portion of money. This is what I'm going to do. That is something that was done all over the colonies. No.
And Maroons did that to slaves too.
Wait, the last question, I'm going because we have to leave. The last question. Yeah. Do you think, given what was signed then and what we know now, do you think that the Maroon community or the normal Africans, like me said, an apology for that part of the signature? That part?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So you don't have no...
I don't have
no feeling towards
the wherewithal. It's not invested in me to apologize for their actions. Absolutely not. Okay. And if you're waiting for it,
because I'm not waiting on it. I'm not waiting on it. I was asking if this is a.
And you're going to see how this very same treaty is something that you have not talked about. You talked about all kinds of things, but not about the celebration. And you will see on the day of the celebration how this very same treaty has come to rescue us. You will follow the same treaty that you people denigrate. You will see how this treaty has come to rescue us. You will see it happen on Sunday. Come and see it happen. And it can happen only because of the Maroon signed the treaty.
I have taken part.
It can happen only because Maroon signed the treaty. So come Sunday and find out what I'm talking about.
I want the people them to come.
It's very same treaty. It will change how people think about the treaty. Come Sunday.
Nobody thinks anything problem about the Maroons. The Maroons are glorified, are honored anywhere you go in the Caribbean and in the world. When I hear about the Maroon, they are glorified.
Not so here. Not so here in Jamaica.
No,
they're not in Jamaica.
No, you know why?
Watch me. Yeah. Let me just say something here. When on the 50th anniversary of this country, the Maroons, I was asked to bring one Maroon from Moortown, one from Charlestown, one from Spotsop, one from Akompong to come to the stadium to jump for 1 minute. 1 minute. To jump for 1 minute.
Jump?
To jump, yes, for 1 minute.
Where?
Last year.
Where?
At the stadium.
Who create that? Does the government create that? The government. We're not talking about no government.
So what we're talking about respect. What are we talking about?
Wait, no, listen.
When we went to Africa, in Elmina, at the 200th anniversary of Business Day, we drummed for all the chiefs, all of the president. We drummed here. We went to Canada and drum at
yes, because this government
with 35,000 people, more people that can hold
it's the same way
the
they
stadium.
treat Rasta in Jamaica. So me and you on the same side when it come on to government.
Yeah.
Me and you on the same side when it come on to government. Same like how them treat the maroon them, and same way they treat Rasta over there. But that is not what I'm asking you now. I am saying to you, you see, when you separate the Maroons from the Africans, who the Maroons is also Africans, you get the feeling that what you are saying, because you're Maroon, you must not marry outside of the Maroon community, you know.
No. But clearly that is not so.
No,
clearly.
No, but what I said, I have heard Maroon say that.
Well,
I have heard Maroon say that, you know. Whether them wrong or them right, I hear them say, Maroon say, you must be married outside of the Maroon community. All right. Just like how you say, you don't want to mix, confuse the spirit them in a different graveyard. It's the same idea. It's the same idea.
No, it's not the same idea.
Yeah, it's the same idea. You are doing it in death and them are doing it in life. Don't mix up the spirit of an African and a Maroon when it comes on to marriage. It's the same thing you saying. Don't mix up the African spirit with the Maroon spirit when it comes on to death.
No.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Because Taki was not a Maroon, and you said don't mix up his spirit. Paul Bogle was a Maroon, and not do the same thing with him.
But,
all right.
But his spirit was anti-Maroon. Taki's spirit was anti-Maroon. He was a romantic chief. And again, you're not understanding something here.
No, what is there to understand?
There's a challenge here.
What is there to understand is that the Maroons sign a paper with the British saying that they will disrupt anything in Jamaica that will cause the British to feel uncomfortable.
Look, the Charlestown Maroons were reprimanded for not coming to fight in one uprising that they didn't feel was worth it. They were reprimanded, for not coming. So they responded different situations.
You know, we have that same idea right now in Jamaica with PNP and GLP and the garrison areas them, where them create tribes amongst the people them, and this tribe feels them is better than the next tribe. Yet the whole of we are the same Jamaican people. No. The Maroons are not saying they're better. No, what?
That is not what they're saying. They're not saying they're better.
Every Jamaican right now want to associate something with the Maroon. Why, my grandfather was Maroon, my grandmother was Maroon. I when the man of Maroon, them say.
But this wasn't always so. This wasn't always so. A lot of people didn't want.
Yeah, but no, I am talking about no.
Now things are changing because people are seeing the value of Maroon. They're being made to see the value of Maroon, and they will continue to see the value of Maroon as time goes by.
Most people I know recognize the Maroons as valuable. Most people that I know recognize the Maroons as valuable. Whether in Jamaica, I don't know if it's because they are moving amongst conscious people, but the people them that I know in Africa, in America, and in Jamaica, most of them recognize the Maroons as great warriors. That is what I'm saying. And I have recognized them as great warriors. What I cannot come to grips with is the idea that the Maroons and me over here, so, is two different set of people. And if I start to create problem for the British, the Maroon them going to come chop off my head. Because they want autonomy and a little piece of dirt over there, so where the Maroons them not talking about repatriation. The Maroons them not talking about African redemption. Them talking about a compound and more town. That is what them talking about.
No. Okay. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Well,
it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot.
They are in terms of the Ghanaian aspect of Africa. Yeah. The Maroons are keepers.
The Maroons are what?
The culture and the spirit of the Ghanaian
I don't see that now, though. When I go to a compound, I don't see that. I see most of them turning Christian, and most of them now is selling Chinese goods at the celebration and all these things. That is what I see now. They're not maintaining that spirit, that Coromante, that Asante spirit that we know about. Them actually is now part of the system that they was fighting up. I guess you can't say that about a Rasta too, but that's what I see.
Well, you know, things ebb and flow, and one has to be reminded. One has to be reminded. That's why on the museum gives me the Vancouver bird.
All right, so we just want to remind the people then. Remind the people then.
And so we too are forgotten.
All right, we're going to remind the people that
you came to Charlestown and you challenged us. You asked us, would the ancestors be pleased with the way they're living? You asked us that.
Yeah. All right.
And then you asked us that I would have to say no.
Mr. Lums, we have to finish this interview here now. It's 1 o'clock. I have to go.
Yes.
So we want to remind the people them that from Friday, 4 days, it is the celebration of the Charlestown Maroon in recognizing the signing of the peace treaty with the British by Quaco.